Well, welcome. Hello, and welcome to another enlightening edition of LEMD's live educational series. We're excited to have you join us as we explore topics that empower you to lead a healthier, more fulfilling life. I like to say at LEMD, our commitment extends beyond telehealth services. We aim to educate and inspire, helping you navigate your wellness journey with confidence. Each week, we feature experts who share their knowledge and insights, equipping you with the tools necessary for optimal health and longevity. Tonight, we're thrilled to introduce Katie Kovaleski, a dedicated therapeutic life coach and the founder of katiekovaleski.com. With a robust academic background in mental health and marriage and family counseling, Katie combines traditional therapeutic methods with holistic practices to facilitate meaningful change in her clients' lives. She specializes in helping individuals understand and cope with the mental aspects of food noise, guiding them to rebuild their relationship with food and embrace mindfulness. In this session, Katie will discuss the impact of food noise, coping strategies for emotional management, and practical tips for fostering resilience on your journey to a healthier relationship with food. Get ready for a fun and enlightening chat. Welcome to our educational series. Thank you so much for being here, Katie. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, likewise, likewise. So when I met you, you were talking about the food noise aspect of it, and so many people I think can relate. A lot of people are on GLP-1 medications now, not just in our community, outside of our community. And it's a really interesting topic because we don't necessarily talk about what happens after the food noise calms down for especially so many of us who have developed and built addictive like brains, right? So we're gonna get into that. Why don't we just start with your background? Because you're an inspiration. You've got this extensive background, and I want you to talk about it and talk about your journey a little bit to our
Yeah,
audience.
I'd love to. So, I'm Katie. I'm super happy to be here. I guess the best way to describe myself is an outside of the box traditional therapist. So, I finished grad school in 2010, and I think that's sort of when my outside of the box approach was born. When you are studying to be a mental health therapist in school, they prefer that you choose sort of one theory to major in. So in grad school, we had a few options, and I, being outside of the box, refused to be in the box. And I said, well, I want to major in all of these. I want to learn every single theory. I want to be able to have an entire bag of tools to get my clients. I don't understand why I have to pick one. And they made a concession and they called what I was doing eclectic. I was the eclectic therapist. So I think that term still applies in that I'm always looking for the best of the best tools to help serve my clients. So after grad school, I went down sort of the traditional mental health path. I was a therapist and I was noticing that a lot of my clients and the populations I was serving weren't necessarily getting better. They were coming in frequently and they weren't always having the turnaround that I would like to see them have after working with them for a year or two. So I went back to school and really started focusing on studying nervous system care. And I did some certifications. And I myself at that point was having my own anxiety in life. And I was using my therapy tools and they also were not working. And so I thought, if this is my experience as a therapist, a lot of other people out there probably are having similar experiences. So at that point, I really started getting into yoga and meditation and breath work and nervous system care and stuff, which I call self care. And then I co founded a nonprofit for 3.5 years that focused on teaching nervous system care to women. And we spent 6 or 12 weeks with them, teaching them about their own bodies, about their nervous systems, and how to self soothe. I thought, I don't want people to know why they're anxious. I want them to know how to calm themselves down so that they're not reliant on me and they can empower themselves. And so I did that for a few years. And then I thought, well, we know why we're anxious, we know how to calm ourselves, but the anxiety still comes up. So there has to be a bigger root here. What are we missing? And that was a subconscious piece. So I went back to school again. I studied subconscious change, and I practiced a modality called Psych K. And that helps us work directly with the subconscious mind so that we can change limiting beliefs on a subconscious level. And that was a missing piece. And so there's that mind, body, and spirit component. Traditional therapy addresses the conscious part, Psych K addresses the subconscious, and then the nervous system care really helps with the body. But then there's more. A few years after that, I thought, I've watched my own weight struggle, and I could pinpoint in a timeline all of the traumas or things that have happened through my life that have led to that. I understand how I got here. I understand why my weight goes up and down, but I don't understand why I can't stop it with the tools that I have. It still felt like a struggle. And that's when I started becoming interested in peptides and found GLP-1s and started to use them. And I witnessed myself how the food noise disappeared and also how everything else came up. Everything underneath the food noise that the food noise was insulating me from was coming up, and it came fast and it hit pretty hard. And I thought, oh wow, like I really thought, and I willingly dig into my life and I willingly look at things. And so it was really interesting to me. And so I stopped the GLP-1 and I took some time to do all of the inner work so that I could sort of up level all the stuff that had come up. And then I went back to the GLP-1, and now I'm happily been on it for the last 3 months, and it's amazing. But I noticed with clients, especially when the food noise stops with the GLP-1, that the fixation goes elsewhere. And so it's so important to talk about what food noise really protects us from, why it's there to begin with, and then do the physical, mental, and emotional pieces all in tandem so that we don't end up having that anxiety and fixation come out in other areas of our lives, because it will. It's there for a reason. So.
I love this. I love this because I think the platform, not because I know the platform that we're creating here at LEMD, we want to treat people holistically, like whole, right? And that's what functional medicine and integrative medicine is all about. It's about healing, not just the cells, the internal, but also the subconscious and the spirit. And I love that you're bringing your knowledge and your passion to us. But before we go there, why don't we define what food noise is for our audience? What do you consider food noise, and where does it come from?
I define food noise in sort of a casual way as the mental chatter that we have around food that's pretty much constantly there. So it's that voice in our head that's telling us what to eat, when to eat. It could be punishing or shaming, but it's constant. And if you have food noise or you've had it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is always there. We're never not aware of what we're eating or when we're eating. It's that constant chatter. And as you do sort of the emotional work, the quality of the chatter might change, but that doesn't mean it's gone. And so I think a lot of people mistake food noise with being overweight or with overfeeding ourselves, and that's not necessarily true. Food noise is when we have a constant fixation of thinking about food, to varying degrees. And so if we're at a healthy weight, but we overthink what we eat all day long or all week long, that's food noise. If we eat a burger and then we have guilt about it and we think about what we need to do to work that burger off, that is food noise. It's when we are basically in a codependent relationship with the topic of food, and it takes up a little voice box in our head that is essentially always there.
And Katie, now is that physiological, or is it just it's childhood trauma? Can we talk about the essence of food noise? Because I do understand when candida and bacteria are fighting for resources, you do get that, the candidas are like, "Oh, feed me sugar, give me more sugar." So there is a physiological component to it, but there's also a coping mechanism. So can you get to the root of where does this food noise come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So the root of food noise is the same root for all addiction, really. And that's in our need to self-soothe. So at some point in our lives, likely in childhood, we were having a pretty intense stress response, whether that was from acute trauma or not. And we either witnessed a model of using food to soothe, or we found that ourselves. And once we used it to soothe and then we kept doing it, it became habituated. And then that becomes our unconscious soother. And so when we have heightened stress or anxiety, we're going to unconsciously be feeding that voice every time we eat. And then we want to do it more and more and more. The heart of every addiction really begins with a desire to self-soothe, to calm our nervous systems down. And then it gets out of control. And then it just becomes the addiction part is the consistent chatter. But it's a desire to feel better, to self-soothe when our anxiety spikes or our stress system spikes.
And in your opinion, or from everything that you know, what are some misconceptions around food noise?
I think that it's our fault, quote unquote, or that we should be able to stop it. It should be easy to make it go away. We should be able to use willpower to overcome it, or that ultimately there's something wrong with us because we can't do what maybe the person next to us can easily do, which is even if they're having a little sugar craving, they eat an apple and they go on with their day. Whereas we might fixate on that and be in a fight, be in an internal battle with not giving in to what our body's asking for from that addiction place.
Mm. And addiction, I mean, there's alcohol, there's drugs, there's work, there's so many types of addiction. So let's talk about that. Now let's delve in when the food noise quiets down. When we have an addict's brain, we're coping, we're soothing, and that food noise calms down. Can you elaborate on what ends up happening? And let's get into the fun stuff.
Yeah. When the food noise calms down, the issues come up. There can be a lot of feelings of emptiness or almost loneliness if we slow down long enough to feel them. So if we don't immediately slide into kind of the next fixation, and the fixation could be on eating healthy. The fixation could be, am I getting enough protein as I'm taking these GLP-1s? And that's all I'm thinking about. So we likely will end up fixating on another area of our lives that maybe in the periphery had bothered us, but is now a full-blown thing to us. A full-blown, I need to look at this, I need to figure this out. And that could be a relationship, it could be work, it could be our kids, but we're likely to see a fixation pop up in another area. And that could be working out. Fixations aren't always like negative, but anything that we overdo can become sort of that addictive pattern. But you're likely to see the fixation pop up somewhere else. And you might feel that urgency, that constant chatter about it. Where is my chatter now focused? Most people are likely to experience that.
That is so fascinating to me. When you said that in Orlando, or I'm sorry, when we were in Florida, when you said that in Fort Lauderdale, I was like, I had this aha moment, like, I didn't even notice this. That yes, the fixation is the food noise went away, but now I've diverted my fixation to something else and somewhere else. That is so fascinating. So, can you tell us about some of the coping mechanisms and what we can do? Now what do we do?
Yeah. So we always want to get to the root, and sometimes we have to reverse engineer it and start at the surface and work down. But essentially, we know that the food noise is here because at some point in our lives, we needed to self-soothe. Something was happening that we needed to soothe our system from. And so if we can identify what that was, then we can start to work on that. We can work on the root of it. The second biggest thing is learning how to self-soothe in other ways. Our nervous systems require as much care as brushing our teeth do. So if we want, beautiful teeth, we have to brush them. We need to go to the dentist. Our nervous systems require that same daily care, and we're just not taught those skill sets. In order to not reach for something maladaptive or to calm a fixation, we have to practice consistent nervous system care every single day. And so that's a huge part of why I teach that. It calms the mind. The fixation can calm down. From a calmer place, we can then assess the root. So do we want to go necessarily right to the root origin of why the food noise was there if our nervous systems are fried? No. We want to soothe our nervous systems first, increase our bandwidth, and then look at the root. But the biggest thing, mindfully self-soothing. So nervous system care all day long. And when I talk about nervous system care, I call it self-care, but I'm referencing empirically studied and empirical data that backs up activities that are shown to calm and ground and soothe your nervous system on a scientific level. So some people think, I went and got my nails done. That was my self-care. Or like my girlfriend and I went to lunch. Like, I hope you enjoyed those activities. Those are not empirically shown to calm and ground your nervous system in a way things like breathwork are, meditation, yoga. Those are some primary ones, acupuncture, chiropractic work. These are things that help soothe the mind and the body and the spirit. And when practiced consistently, the effects of those compound. And then suddenly you have a lot more bandwidth. Suddenly the quality of your thoughts have changed. Suddenly the fixation starts to die down. You can't heal fixation without soothing your nervous system in a different way. You have to substitute it with something.
That's really interesting. Now, what strategies can help individuals reconnect with their natural hunger and fullness cues? Um, what are some of
Slowing
those strategies?
slowing down. Slowing down is probably the best strategy for learning how to do anything differently. So the cool thing about relearning hunger and what your body needs, the GLP-1s are such a great asset in this way. To be honest, I don't know if you really struggle with food noise. I'm not sure there's anything else available that's going to quiet the food noise in a way that's going to allow you to learn new habits the way that the GLP-1s do. I don't think that there is anything. I think I think that's going to be the standard of care moving forward for it, to be honest with you. And once that food noise is gone, we want to eat mindfully. We want to sit with our food. You want to take a few bites, chew slowly, notice how you feel, and then put the fork down when you start to feel full, and you will feel full. That's the other great thing about the GLP-1s is that the cues of fullness are so much stronger than when you're not using one. And so again, it's just such a helpful tool to have because it helps us eat slower. It's easier to be mindful, and when we're eating, when we're on them, it's easier to eat smaller portions, but slowing down, taking mindful bites, learning how to experiment with like, quote, bad food. We want to destigmatize food. If we vilify certain foods, we're still in a codependent struggle with food. If we vilify something, it still has power over us. Neutralizing our relationship with food, seeing it as a beautiful thing that feeds us, and that some of it is incredibly pleasurable. We just need how to learn that moderation. And the GLP-1s like provide an amazing way to do that. Honestly, you can relearn how to enjoy food, but slow down, mindfully eat, and consistently eat is the other part of it.
Katie, how about all the studies that have come out regarding GLP-1s, especially tirzepatide, GLP-1 GIP, and its its impact on the dopamine and the reward pathways, right? And actually, there's a lot of doctors that prescribe it for addictive patterns, right? But it seems as if that's not bulletproof when it comes to food noise, right? And um, it doesn't necessarily prevent you from, I guess, diverting your attention from something to something else, even when it comes that the nerve, I guess, when it disrupts the dopamine pathways, right? So can you talk to us about, I guess, negative thoughts and that negative loop? Because there's dopamine release in the negative thought patterns as well. So what do you do to, I guess, cope with negative thought and that sort of
So a
thing?
negative thought is only a negative thought because of the way it makes us feel, right? So at the core of it, what we're really bumping up against is a negative emotion, the way our thought makes us feel. Um, the key here, the invitation here, is to understand that all of our emotions have value and they're all there to teach us something. And so when we are still going into the negative thought cycles, we have to question, well, where do my thoughts originate from? Your thoughts originate from your subconscious programming. You can't have a thought that isn't directly tied to a belief or a program that resides in your subconscious. So if you're looping on negative thoughts and they're still coming up, it just indicates you have limiting subconscious programming that's blocking you from being able to move forward. Your thoughts, we're not in control of the way that we really think. We think we are, but on a conscious level, we're not. 95% of the thoughts you think are direct derivative of a belief or a program in your subconscious mind. You don't have access to changing those without help and support. We can't intrinsically just access them. And so part of this is understanding this process with food noise and with losing weight and being healthy is only partially about the physical part. A huge part of it is emotional and a huge part of it is mental. And so if we get on the GLP-1 and we're still having negative thoughts and we're still not able to overcome that and change our relationship with food, it's because we're missing two other pivotal pieces. And one is the subconscious mind, and one is the nervous system. And so both of those things have to be addressed. There's no quick fix for that. The GLP-1 does wonders in helping the body and helping us eat less and slow down and things like that. But what comes up after that also requires attention and care. And again, it's not a quick fix, but you can't just switch off the thoughts. You have to look to where they actually originate.
I love that. So you touched on mindfulness, but can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on after the food noise has faded, how can individuals redefine their relationship with food? What can we do?
Yeah. So the first step of anything when we want to change our relationship with it is to think about how it has been and what we would like to see instead. And that's the first step of kind of manifesting anything. We have to conceive it. So it's like, wouldn't it be nice if blank was my relationship with food, and write it down, kind of journal it out. So mindfulness allows us to be fully present with what's happening in the moment. And we want to be able to observe that. Wow, I've noticed that my hunger cues like have died down. I get full faster, the food noise is gone, but I still have resentment towards food. I fear food or I'm angry at it, whatever it is, I vilify it. Okay, what would I like my relationship with food to look like instead? I want to love food. I want to honor it. I want to be glad for the grounding and soothing effect it has and not be reliant on it. Because food can be an amazing way to calm our nervous system down if we use it mindfully. And so we want to give it good attributes. We don't want to keep vilifying it. So your first step is like, what do I want my relationship with food to look, feel, and sound like? And write it down. Get very clear on what you want that to look like, and then stop and observe it. And that's the kind of the mindful part, is being really present with the way that you're responding to it and shifting that.
Mm. I love that, because so many people always ask us, like, well, am I going to have to be on these medications, these GLP-1s for the rest of my life? And it's like, well, if you don't fix the mindset, right, and the relationship that you have with food, yes, you may need to be on these medications for the rest of your life. What is your view on that? On patients who come to you and they're like, should I be on these medications for the rest of my life? What kind of tips and tricks do you have for them? And what do you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, on some level, I think like, well, am I going to be sleeping with a fancy pillow for the rest of my life? Yes. And air conditioning? Yes, because I love it. So there's so many things in our life that we're dependent on and that we spend
Mm.
money on, and like we don't think twice about. And it's like, well, could you sleep well without that? No. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to have to be on this for the rest of your life. We have to start seeing this as a gift and not sort of like this punishment, or like, I have to use this because something's wrong with me. It's like, no, there's this gift we can use that gives us all kinds of amazing health benefits that we're only just tapping into. And like, who cares if we have to be on it? We can vary the dosage, we can play with our relationship with it, but like, I'm just excited that there is this gift that exists that is doing all these incredible things for us. We should be so lucky. Like I would probably give up my pillow for my GLP-1, but it's about normalizing it by like, take a look around at your life and think about all the things that you spend money on that you basically need, that you're never going to stop using. Why is there shame if this is the outcome there? Why is there shame? I have to use toothpaste every day for the rest of my life. I need, like, there's so much stuff we spend money on that we have to use every day. So what? So what?
Mm.
So it's letting go of the shame of that. I think because these are new and they're cutting edge and they're so effective, there's so much sort of like propaganda and talk around like, you need to be on this forever. And I always have people stop and I'm like, make a list of everything around you that you use every day that you're probably going to use every day for the rest of your life. And then,
Mm.
like, change the narrative on that. We have to change that narrative. It's okay. It's
Mhm. I
okay.
love that you talk about that, because I have lost weight on my own, significant amount of weight on my own, um, multiple times in my life. And the fear of gaining the weight back has haunted me more than being overweight. And I just love the idea of knowing there is a tool. I could let go of that fear and that fixation on the fear of gaining the weight back. That to me is a gift in itself, right? And it's like sometimes I don't have to get my medication. I don't have to inject myself for 20 days, 25 days. And sometimes, I have to do it on a weekly basis. I'm at a point in my life where I feel very comfortable with my weight, but now I use it as a tool to really like cope with the talk. And that's, I mean, when people ask for advice, last night we had an event here in Utah and someone was asking, do I have to be on this for the rest of my life? And I'm like, well, it's really up to you, right? So what is your advice around that?
Yeah, I would say it's an invitation to step into full self-acceptance and full love of yourself, basically. Because if we step into self-love and self-acceptance, we're not going to be worried about whether or not we have to be on this. We're going to see it as a gift, and we're going to be able to release the fear, the constant fear we've had our entire lives of gaining weight and losing it and regaining it. When we love ourselves, we want to get rid of that fear. And if there's something there that we can lean on for the rest of our lives whenever we need it, that's going to provide us with a safety when it comes to our bodies that we've never had. So, yes, celebrate that this is always there. Celebrate that it's going to be there to take care of you if you need it. You don't have to be afraid anymore. So, I think it's a beautiful thing. But if we're fighting that, if we're like, I don't know, I don't want to have to love myself that way forever, that's what they're really saying. I don't want to have to love and invest in myself in that way forever. regardless of how much angst the weight journey has been for us, that's an invitation to love yourself more. There's something there that's
Mm.
keeping you from
Ah,
loving.
I love that. Christy wrote, mic drop. Oh my gosh. It's an invitation to step into self-love. I love that. I love that. You touch on a really good point. And now, especially with all the benefits that are coming around, microdosing and all of the, anti-inflammatory benefits and neurocognitive benefits. I mean, there's so much, the cardiovascular benefits. So it's like, yeah, why wouldn't I want to use this as a tool for a long period of time? So I want to ask you, how can someone celebrate their progress without falling back into old habits related to food noise?
Yeah, and so that kind of food is such a celebratory thing, right? So it's like, let's go to dinner to celebrate this, and let's go eat that. Um, if we're talking about, how to celebrate using food, but doing it in a mindful way, again, we want to do it slowly. So at the beginning of your journey, if someone's having a celebratory dinner and the thought of going scares you, maybe don't go. It's okay to say no at the beginning of learning a new relationship with food. Something you can also practice is having a mindful bite. So, having a mindful bite of something that you villainize and just eating one bite of it and sitting with it, allowing yourself to have a new relationship with it, allowing it to taste good, allowing it to be pleasurable, and just having the one bite. And slowly adding in things to see how it feels. We don't want to slip back into old patterns by moving too quickly into our like kind of old life with food. We want to move slowly. You want to like ease into it. So again, saying no to things as you're adjusting is going to be your best friend, right? So that you can give yourself time to adapt. If you have your first night out and you overindulge a little bit and you don't feel that great, no guilt, no shame. You learn from that. You use that information and you say, okay, I'm going to come to the party for an hour and then I'm going to leave. So this whole process is really about falling in love with yourself in a new way, which isn't I'm not going, I can't ever go to that. I'm going to try, see how it feels, and if it's too much, I'm going to pull back. And then I'm going to try again later. And that's what we do in a loving relationship. We don't tell someone, nope, you're never going to be allowed to do this again. I'm putting all these rules and punishments. It's like, let's take it slow, see how it feels. And if it's too much, we're going to pull back and then we'll try again. And we're going to keep trying. And that's how you can really make food celebratory again without overwhelming yourself.
Mm. Okay, so we want to make this a dynamic conversation. So please post your questions in the chat and we'll have Katie answer them. But I love that you talk about that. And so more around the environment and how environment and social situations influence our and I love that you talk about celebrating it, but how can we manage our social situations where food remains a focal point after the food noise has calmed down? What do we do about that? And you mentioned celebrating, but is there anything else that we can
I
do?
think part of it too is releasing the shame around talking about where you're at. So if we're in a social situation and our needs have changed or our capabilities have changed when it comes to food, talking to people around us about it. I think a lot of this stuff is riddled with shame. And it's like, I don't want to tell anybody I'm, taking this GLP-1 and I don't want to own what's happening as the gift that it is, and then set boundaries based on that. Be open, be honest about it. I'm not willing to go here, I'm not going to stay out that late, and this is what I'm doing and here's why. As opposed to either one, going along with a social setting that's not really meeting your needs, or just completely shutting it down. You can still be social and be like, quote, normal, but I think part of that is being really upfront with the people around you about what you're doing, and how you're supporting yourself.
Mm, love that. And Katie, what maybe you could talk to us about long-term strategies so that we just have this long-term relationship with food that's positive and um, very it's not a codependent relationship. What strategies do you have? Is there anything else that you can share with us? And also maybe talk about how you service your clients and what approaches you take with your clients.
Yeah. So I approach the relationship with food the same way I approach helping anyone with any relationship. So anything that we interact with in life, we have a relationship with or to. And so a lot of the tools, skill sets, and theories that apply to relationship coaching or counseling applies to food. And so we want to look at it. We want to look at the root of it. We want to look at our history with it. We want to come to a place of acknowledgement, of acceptance, and then release of what no longer serves us, and then of rebuilding. So for things to be sustainable in a long-term plan, you want to approach your relationship with food as if it was your partner and you're in like marriage coaching or counseling. It's again, let's look at our patterns. Let's look at where they originated. We come to that place of acknowledgement and acceptance. We come to that place of forgiveness, of grief. Grief comes up a lot when we're dealing with food and reestablishing food patterns. Grief comes up anytime we're dealing with the relationship you have to anything that we want to change. So giving yourself that time. And then you move into rebuild. What do I want instead? How do I need to support myself to get that? Okay. Consciously, I need to acknowledge what I want and be very clear about it. Subconsciously, I might need support in building new programming and rules around this topic or relationship. And then nervous system. I'm committed to taking care of my nervous system on a daily basis so that I have the bandwidth to stay on this path. And so those are things that apply to any relationship or any topic in life, but it too applies to food. And think about food. You have a lifelong relationship with it. A lot of us have been in a codependent or abusive relationship with food. And so coming out of that and letting the food noise go and rebuilding a new relationship looks a lot like doing that with anybody or anything we've been in a toxic situation with. We have to go through all the stages of grief and then rebuilding if we want to make it last.
In your environment, you have to change your environment too. You have to make that healthy.
Oh yeah.
Because if not, you'll fall right back into the same patterns. But no, this was really enlightening, and thank you. I think it's something that now we can all take and be conscious of. I think that just awareness, having that awareness of shoot, like when you first said it, I was like, oh my God, I didn't even recognize where my focus had gone after the food noise, right? I had trained myself for so long to be fixated on food, cope with food. And now that that's gone, like, wow. So thank you so much for sharing this. Now, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, and maybe you could touch on like what you provide your clients and what other services you provide, and where can we find you if we wanted to get in touch with you, and how can you assist our community?
Yeah. So I currently am servicing a demographic I call midlife mayhem. So my favorite demographic to work with are women in their 30s up through their 50s, going through that midlife mayhem. A lot of us are experiencing hormonal changes, and I love working with clients to support them through the use of peptides or HRT or things like that, and all the strategies I just talked about, because it is a mind, body, spirit picture. And what's missing from traditional therapy models is that body part. We're really not focused on the hormonal changes and the way that impacts us. So you can reach me on Instagram at coach_KDK. My website is katiekovaleski.com. And I have created a special bonus gift for you guys for coming tonight. So I'm offering a single session or a 4-pack at a pretty hefty discount. So if you would enjoy a session and figuring out maybe what some of your roots are and diving into the tools I mentioned, feel free to follow me on Instagram, send me a DM with food noise, and I will give you some info on how we can get started with that too.
I love that. And we have put the link down below. It says follow Katie on Instagram. So if you'd like to hear more of what Katie does, please follow her. And thank you all so, so much. Katie, this is awesome. Thank you so much for shedding light on this topic, because I think it's so important that we talk about it now that our community is losing their weight and so many people are losing 20 pounds, 30, 50, 60. I mean, shoot, we had someone in Cabo that lost 370 pounds. I don't know if she's here, but that's incredible to me. I mean, the mindset shift that has to take place, right? And also the hormonal shift, and there's so much that's involved. And I love that we're having these conversations, and it's important as a community that we have these conversations and we hold each other up and accountable. So thank you so much for coming here and sharing your knowledge. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll be back next week with more. Thank you all so, so much. Thank you again, Katie, for
Thank
this
you. Thank you for
enlightening
having me.
conversation. Of course. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Take care.